Hello, and welcome to not an episode of my Undertale playthrough. It's kind of an episode of my Undertale playthrough, but instead, it's going to be like a podcast-style video where I talk about my Deltarune and Undertale theories, because I've been working on this project, and it's been taking me forever, even though it's not that big in scope. It's actually kind of small. It's just that it's hard to stay focused and work on that thing on my Deltarune project. My Deltarune theory project. And it's not that I lack the motivation, it's just that things are going very, very slowly. So far, I only have 3 minutes of it edited. So, yeah, that tells you how things are going. So, instead of taking forever to get that video out there, I'm going to make this quick podcast-style video where I grind gold with Temmie in the background, because I'm constantly running out of gold in my Undertale playthrough. I'm also gonna have the script somewhere on screen, maybe slightly transparent, maybe slightly small, in a corner. But I'm just gonna read from my Deltarune theory script, because my theory is taking forever, and because it doesn't fully cover all the theories that I've written down in here. Alright, let's get going. My Deltarune Blood Boxes Theory. Hello, this is the first proper Deltarune theory I am making for my channel, and I don't really make Deltarune theories, though I would like to be a Deltarune theorist. But this is an exception, and I want to talk about my interpretations of the Chapter 4 Weird Route scene. Speaking of Chapter 4's Weird Route, there will be spoilers for Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4, obviously. I might also talk about some smaller Deltarune theories and ideas at the end after I finish my main theory, which is something that I will do in my video, and something that I'll do in my podcast, except in the video it won't cover all my theories, because I recorded the voiceover well before I finished writing all of my theories, and even then, I'll probably write down more theories later in the script, after I finish making this small podcast-like video. Also, it's gonna be completely freeform. Sorry if my mic got a little weird. I had to grab something, so I had to move away and move towards my mic. I'll try and stay in the same spot for now, but this is going to be completely freeform. I'm going to be reading off of my script, but in general, this is going to be unscripted. Alright, the main thing I want to talk about is the Chapter 4 Weird Route scene, particularly the moment where the possessed Chris equips the thorn back on Noelle. Lots of people think that we are growing another red soul inside Noelle, but I don't even know why people think that. What would another red soul being inside Noelle do? I don't think the weird route will be the multiplayer route. It might be that we are giving Noelle the capability to be controlled by the red soul that we are already in control of and using to control Chris with. That could be it, but considering the original games you play backstage in Chapter 3, and how the white mage that represents Noelle is used up before Chris/you are used up, I don't think Noelle would have much use past Chapter 5, considering the chapter numbers in the Spamton sweepstakes. But it could also be that us controlling Noelle is what causes her to be used up in Chapter 5, so I don't think it's a bad theory. I do not think there are any bad Deltarune theories. Well, yeah, there might be some bad Deltarune theories, but in general, the more Deltarune theories there are, the better. So I don't hate them. I can see them being slightly plausible, but in a lot of cases I can dig up mountains of evidence against them. But this is where I explain my theory, and it's quite obvious. Noelle is bleeding. It's not just Susie that bleeds, but Noelle. Originally, the scene was a wilting rose, which I think was meant to represent the thorn we stabbed into Noelle's hand. That animation got changed to the red dot from the Spampton sweepstakes before we got the finished animation of the red cracks, because people interpreted the wilting rose in an even worse way that Toby did not intend. Even though Chapter 2's weird route already had bad romantic implications, so it's obvious some people would come to that conclusion. Neither my blood theory or the growing red soul theory works well with the original scene of the wilting rose, but I still want to get my theory out there because even if the wilting rose petals version of the scene, because even in the wilting rose version of the scene, you still hear the stabbing sound, a stabbing sound effect which implies blood. The red dot in version 2 of the scene in the Spampton sweepstakes represents the small hole we put into Noelle's hand by stabbing the thorn into her. The finished scene with the cracks would then represent the blood pouring out of Noelle's hand, or cracking the skin layer, or whatever a reindeer skin layer is called. Oh, a reindeer skin layer is called, okay, never mind. I forgot. But I have it in the video, which will eventually come out. I'll make the theory video a second priority to normal playthroughs once I finish this. So it's gonna take even longer, but you'll get even more videos in return of me playing through games, through me playing Pikmin and Undertale. But back on track. I might be wrong about this part, but later on when we think of Noelle in Chapter 4's Dark World, we see the red dot from version 2 of the scene, even if we are playing on a version of the game with the original Wilting Rose animation or the later Red Cracks animation, meaning that version 2 was always intended to be used in some way, and was always on Toby's mind. So if the patch notes are to be believed, then that detail supports the fact that the red dot and the red cracks are not too far off from Toby's original vision, so it should still be fine to theorize about it, even though it's not the original version of the scene. Back to the detail of the red dot when we think of Noelle. It could be that Noelle still has the thorn in her hand, and that the bleeding is just stopped by the time we think of her, or that Noelle or Carol removed the thorn and maybe patched it up with bandages or maybe patched it up with bandages, but the hole that we made in her skin is still there, and it has not healed yet, just covered up, symbolizing how much Noelle tries to deny it. We are still there, controlling Chris, and the abuse we put her through won't go away. So that's my theory, huh? Just that Noelle bleeds? Well, yes. But I also thought of something else. Something a bit more wild. I don't think this will be revolutionary, and it probably won't be true, but I don't think anyone else will put this idea out there except for me, so I will. My theory is that characters with text box sprites can bleed, specifically Lightners. The Lightners with text box sprites are Susie, Noelle, Birdly, Caddy with an Eye, Jockington, Alphys, Undine, Rudy, Carol, Asgore, Toriel, Sans, Burger/Pizza Pants, the other Caddy with a Y, and Bratty. I know there is not much evidence for this, because the only examples are Susie and Noelle, and maybe Sans if you believe that if you believe in the Sans is from Deltarune theory. And the reason why he bleeds in Undertale is not because of ketchup or some other red liquid used to guilt trip the player into making them think that he is bleeding, but instead that it is his actual blood because Sans is from Deltarune, where monsters can bleed in Deltarune, or at least monsters with text box sprites can. Maybe if we did not freeze Birdly or had his arm get fried in the neutral route, but instead properly cut him with Chris's sword, maybe he would have actually bled. I just want to get this idea out there because I think that the more Deltarune theories that are out there, the better chance we have at solving Deltarune, no matter how bad, weird, or cracked the theory is. Like I said earlier, I don't think that this theory is going to be revolutionary or is true. It's more so an idea I had, and not really a theory, but I wanted to pair it with an analysis of Chapter 4's Weird Route scene, and talk about how Noelle is probably bleeding during that scene. I also wanted to talk about the theory of growing a second red soul within Noelle. I thought of this theory when watching Noaja's Gaster's List Matters theory, because I thought the names that Gaster calls an interesting coincidence were the characters with text box sprites, but it's not. So I was wondering why some Lightners have text box sprites, and more importantly, why some members of Chris's class have text box sprites and why other members do not. Particularly Caddy and Jockington, and Snowy and Monster Teen. Because Snowy and Monster Teen do not have text box sprites, but Caddy and Jockington do. And because of that, we all thought that Caddy and Jockington would appear in Chapter 4's Dark Fountain, because of Jockington appearing in that one prophecy image, and Caddy having ties to the occult. And one of the big things that tie those two together were that they were a pair and are always together, and because they both have text box sprites. That's why we thought that they would appear in Chapter 4's Dark World, but they did not. Of course, they could always appear in a future Dark World, but this got me thinking of another theory that I saw a lot in my recommendations, and that it was the theory that Susie was half human, because Susie bleeds when breaking the prophecy at the end of Chapter 4. And I've always thought that it was weird because I'm pretty sure that Noelle is also bleeding, as I pointed out in the analysis earlier. So I came to the conclusion that text box sprite monsters in the light world were able to bleed, because that would because that would provide an answer to Noelle, Susie, and even Sans bleeding in Undertale. But one thing that could disprove this theory is if we meet Papyrus in Deltarune, and he does have a text box sprite, because it's heavily implied that it's not just Sans that's from Deltarune. It's not just that Sans Undertale is from Deltarune, but also Papyrus from Undertale is from Deltarune. Let me rephrase that. It's also implied that the Sans in Undertale is the Sans from Papyrus. Let me rephrase that yet again, because it's implied in the newsletter that Sans and Papyrus were from Deltarune, because Papyrus remembers seeing green grass before Sans cuts him off. So if he does have a text box sprite in Deltarune, then that would disprove this theory, because that would mean that Papyrus would be able to bleed in Undertale, but he does not. I know that this theory does not have much evidence, but even if some parts of this theory are wrong, I just wanted to get my ideas out there, and I'm pretty sure the first half of this theory, which is an analysis of Noelle bleeding, is probably fine. I have more Deltarune theories, but I don't think I can make any videos about them. At least, not yet. I might make a second video after I finish making the first video, where I cover all the other theories that I wasn't able to talk about in the first video. So let me talk about some of the mini-theories now, and then I'm gonna move on to the other theories that I came up with after recording the voice-over for... Well, after recording the voiceover for the video. Okay, mini-theory number 1. This will also appear in the video. The thing chasing you in the dark echo rooms of the Dark Sanctuary is a Titan spawn. I can't check the code to confirm if it's a Titan spawn, but the silhouette looks like a Titan spawn, and the wiki seems to agree with me. Almost everyone in the community seems to agree that the thing chasing you in the Dark Echo Room is a Titan spawn, which raises some implications because the Titan has not yet appeared yet. The Knight hasn't created that darker-than-dark fountain, which is really interesting, because how is it possible that a Titan spawn is able to exist before the Titan itself? Very interesting. I'll talk about that later. Mini-theory number 2, which will also appear in the video. The Knight created the mini-dark fountain to avoid creating a Titan / causing the roaring. And this is a response to mini-theory number 1. I might be able to make I might be able to make this theory its own video because of how long it is. So don't get your hopes up, but when the first video comes out, I might be getting to work on this. When I first saw the first Sanctuary's mini dark fountain, I thought it was mini because sealing a normal-sized fountain would increase the Delta Warrior's false LV. See Half-Bred Chaos's video on false LV to learn more about false LV and how sealing fountains increases the Delta Warrior's stats. But when Susie creates a normal-sized fountain as the second Sanctuary fountain, and we don't get any false LV from that, I knew that there had to be another reason for why the first Sanctuary fountain was mini. Considering the first and third Sanctuaries are connected, because after you seal the mini dark fountain and open the door to let the darkness from the third fountain into the room that you're already in, you're able to freely explore the first Sanctuary again, even though its fountain is gone, because you sealed it. Let me grab some water. Alright, I'm back. So Considering the first and third sanctuaries are connected and you can freely explore the first sanctuary after sealing the mini fountain because of the darkness from the third sanctuary's fountain, I think that the first mini fountain in the church was actually made by the knight and not Alvin, because, like others think, well, like some others think, because when Susie made her second sanctuary dark fountain, it did not connect to the dark fountain. It did not connect to the third sanctuary fountain because you couldn't see the grand door, and that's because the knight's and Susie's wills are different, meaning that these two fountains were incapable of connecting. The reason why it was mini was because the knight did not want to create the roaring until the Delta Warriors showed up, for whatever reason. Think about it, if the knight truly wanted to cause the roaring, why would they not open a dark fountain after another dark fountain? Or even create a dark fountain inside of the bunker's dark world where the Delta Warriors can't reach. The knight is probably training the heroes for something, and probably created the Titan at the end of Chapter 4 as some kind of test. Of all the extra theories I'm throwing at the end of the Blood Theory video and this podcast, I think this one has great potential to be something interesting. Alright, mini theory number 3. This will also appear in the Blood Theory video as a bonus mini theory. There might be an extra chapter because Chapter 3 took place during the same night as Chapter 2, and if Azrael is going to arrive back at hometown at the end of the game, a future chapter will need to take place over 2 days, or there will be an extra or there is going to be an extra chapter. It could also be that Azrael will not arrive at the end of the game, and the game will end just before he arrives, because at the start of Chapter 1, Toriel says something about Azrael coming back from college within a week, and if there's going to be 7 chapters, and each chapter takes place and if there's going to be 7 chapters, then that would mean we're only playing for 6 days, because chapters 2 and 3 share the same day, because Chapter 3 takes place during the same night as Chapters 2, meaning that Azrael will not appear at the end of Chapter 7. Or during Chapter 7 or whatever. Alright, mini theory number 4. The player is controlling Chris. Now this will also appear at the end of the Blood Boxes theory video, and this is a direct response to Jaru. As always. There's a mountain of evidence pointing towards the player controlling Chris, but Jaru continues to believe that it's Azrael. So, here's more evidence to hopefully that will hopefully so just here's more evidence against it. If Jaru does see this, I'd like to see him come up with an answer against this. Because if I want answers, I don't necessarily want to disprove. Well, I do want to disprove theories, but if you can come up with an answer to this evidence, then that's all the better, I guess. So this last theory is not really a theory, but more evidence disproving Jaru's Azrael's piles of dust, and Azrael is the one possessing Chris theory. At the time of scripting this video, Jaru has not even touched Chapter 4 yet. Well, that was because of copyright reasons. Since then, as of recording this podcast-like video, Jaru has played through Chapter 4 and has uploaded 2 parts of it to his channel. So that's good. If only we could see his, like, reactions to the secret bosses in Chapter 3. But he'll have to fight Materia for even longer on that. So I wonder if we actually will get to see Jaru's playthrough where he does all the secrets in Chapter 3. I hope we get to see that part of his playthrough, but for now, let's just continue on. He has also not seen the Chapter 4's weird route, of course. But once he does beat Deltarune and starts making theories about it again, I hope he does notice this piece of evidence against Azrael possessing Chris and addresses them. So don't go bothering or spoiling him now, because he's already dealing with copyright issues. It's not his fault. He's making good videos. He makes good videos, even if his theories about Azrael possessing Chris has so many holes that when I try to patch them up by playing Devil's Advocate, it feels like I'm making stuff up. I don't even know how he managed to avoid spoilers for this long, but here's piece of evidence number 1. The soul can teleport by using text boxes, which are something only the player can see/use. And according to Jaru's theory about the light/dark world and magic, this should not be possible because there is no magic in the light world. Let me drink some more water. This is tiring. Alright, piece of evidence number 2. The soul can read other characters, specifically Noelle's, thoughts using text boxes, which is only something the player can see. Why would it? If the soul was currently being possessed by Azrael, because Azrael's soul fused with Chris's soul, how would that give him the ability to teleport and read other characters' minds? That wouldn't make any sense. It would only make sense if it was the player, because the player has access to text boxes, which allows them to read other players' minds, and allows the soul to teleport by selecting dialogue options. We see it in Chapter 4's weird route scene. But even before then, in Chapter 2, the soul is capable of reading Noelle's thoughts in the dark world, and respond by saying it's horrible or natural when Noelle tries to electrocute Chris using using that with the, electric gates or whatever. Or at least thinks about doing it. Alright, piece of evidence number 3. In Chapter 3, you can play a racing game against Susie in the green room, but you can't win, and Susie even comments saying, Man, it's like you're not even looking at the screen. Because as the player, we see this world from an angle where we can't see the TV screen. Even Jaru himself mentioned this, and commented it was because the player couldn't see the TV screen that Chris and Susie are using to play. Also in Waterfall, there is text saying that there's a beautiful pattern of crystals on a southern wall, and it's a good thing that you can see them from that angle. And that it's a good thing that you can see them from this angle. If you view this from the lens of Narikera, then this would prove that other entities attached to Frisk can see from their perspective, and not just from the bird's eye view perspective of the players. Even then, if you don't view it from the lens of Narikera, view this from the lens of Narikera, it would raise questions about, about Chris not being able to play the game, because wouldn't the camera, if we were to play the game, wouldn't the camera just, like, turn around, or just zoom in on the screen, or, fade to black and zoom in on the TV screen, allowing us to play? But no, it doesn't. It continues to stay at its default bird's eye view position. Alright, mini theory number 5. I don't think this one will be mentioned in the video, so all future theories are going to be completely unique to this podcast-like video and won't be in the Blood Boxes theory. They might appear in a future Deltarune theory in the future, but that's gonna take a long time and probably won't happen until something. I'm just slowing down here, so let me try and speed things up. There will be a Kara equivalent secret boss in a future chapter. From what Toby says about Spamped Neo and the Hammer of Justice secret bosses, they were created because Toby heard Undertale fans wanted a full Mediton Neo fight and wanted to fight Gerson, or to at least see what he was like during his prime during the war. If Toby continues to throw Undertale fans a bone with secret bosses, then I think we might get a Kara-like secret boss, because from what I've seen of fan games and AUs, lots of Undertale fans wanted to fight back against Kara at the end of Genocide. Even though the whole point of that route and Kara was that you had to live with your consequences. So maybe in a future chapter of Deltarune, the secret boss will have some Kara motifs, like being associated with the number 9 and fighting with knives. Or maybe we could finally get an Alphys boss fight. Alright, mini theory number 6. Frisk had done multiple run-throughs of the underground before we took control of them. And the reason why no one feels any deja vu is because of a true reset. There is not really much evidence about this theory, but I thought of this theory when watching that one scene that changed Sans analysis video, and thought about how Sans reacts to the player, and how Sans is able to learn that Frisk is the anomaly based off of their reactions. So if that's the case, then maybe never mind. I'll explain that later. I think it appears later on. I really don't think there's much evidence for mini theory number 6. There really isn't. It's just a thought that I had. So it's more like mini idea number 1 or whatever. Mini theory number 7. The original games backstage that lead to the Shadow Mantle are not actually the original games that Chris used to play, but are instead ERAMs, or whatever you want to call the holder of the Shadow Mantle's version of the game. Because Tenna appears in the game and talks about how he hopes Chris likes his game. The game directly addresses Chris like the game was made for them, by ERAM, to try and awaken something within Chris and to get them to fall to their violent urges. Also, Susie and Rose appear on board 3, even though they are not with Chris in the backstage area. And it's not some parallel character like the White Mage representing Noelle. It's their actual in-game characters used for Tenna's game. Used for Tenna's modified game. Why would the original game Chris used to play have Susie and Rose in it? Also, why would the original game also have Tenna in it? Because, as mentioned earlier, Tenna appears in the game. Mini theory number 8. Chris looks away when... Okay, this isn't mini theory number 8. This is mini idea number 2. Chris looks away when killing Ralsei in the backstage... in the original game backstage. So Chris does care about Ralsei. This is more so just a response to T-Theory and how Chris doesn't like Ralsei because Chris barely doesn't heal as much HP when using Ralsei T as Susie T. I don't know, maybe their opinion on Ralsei changed in between Chapters 2 and Chapters 3, but not much time changed between then and there. And it's not like there was much that Ralsei did to get Chris's appreciation, so I'd just like to think that Chris always cared about Ralsei. And that their T not heal and Ralsei T not healing Chris that much is still a good amount of HP, just not as much as Susie and Noelle T. Alright, mini theory number 9. The Spade King wears the Shadow Mantle. Alright, this theory is not mine, and I don't know who was the first to create it, but I was watching the leitmotifs in Burning Eyes that no one talks about, and the video, and in the video and the comments, they put the pieces together for me. So thanks to Prismatic Roblox and the people in the comments, and the people who commented in that video, because they are very clever. If you want to learn more about that theory, watch that video and read the comments. This is not my theory, it's just one that I wanted to spread the word of. Mini theory number 10. Okay, this is more like major theory number 2 instead of mini theory number 10. Let me just, oh no. What button did I press? Alright, let me fix this. Alright, red is the color of determination theory. There has been a debate in the community on whether determination is represented by the color red or the color yellow. People on the side of yellow point to the color of save points in Undertale, and how, whenever determination is mentioned, it is always mentioned in yellow text. People on the side of red say that determination is red because it's the color of the player's soul, and the description of the second flag, and the second description of the red flag in the ball game, and also Santa's blood if you think that it was liquid determination. But I don't. I think that it's blood because of blood boxes. I've also heard that some people think that the trait of the red soul is individuality and not determination, and that's fine. It's just that I found more evidence pointing towards red being the color of determination. I also think that individuality is way too similar to integrity to be its own unique soul trait. The thing I noticed is that when Susie creates the second sanctuary fountain, her eyes turn red. And what do we know about fountains? It takes determination. Susie's eyes turn red because she is focusing her determination into making the fountain. Trust me, I know a lot about Susie's eye color. And also her teeth color. This can also explain why Chris's eyes are red. Because they are probably overflowing with determination. As a human with a red soul inside them. If a human soul are still if human souls are still containers of determination like they were in Undertale, then Chris would have both red eyes with and without the red soul inside them, because we know that Chris is still capable of making dark fountains without the soul, so they must still have some determination in their system, allowing them to survive without the soul. And with the soul, Chris has an absurd amount of determination from both the soul and the determination naturally inside their body, which allows them to survive without the soul. Some people probably don't like that I'm suggesting that Chris having red eyes is because of determination and that it's not their natural eye color, and that's fine, because of how much determination Chris has, and the red eyes may as well be their natural eye color. And there is always a chance that I am wrong, but I wanted to bring up Chris's red eyes and suggest that it could be because of their determination, because the same thing could also apply to Frisk at the end of the Soulless Pacifist ending. Some people thought that Frisk having red eyes at the end of the Soulless Pacifist ending was because they were possessed by Kara. Then when Deltarune, specifically Chapter 2, came out and we saw that Chris's red eyes were their natural eye color, people started to believe that Frisk just naturally had red eyes, and that it had nothing to do with Kara possessing Frisk in the Soulless Pacifist ending. But now that we have Chapter 4 and see Susie creating a dark fountain with her determination and her eyes turning red, I want to propose a third interpretation of the Soulless Pacifist scene. Frisk's eyes turn red because of their determination, whether it was always because of their natural abundance of determination, or from the red soul, or because of the combined determination of Kara and Frisk when Kara possesses them. Also, this is something that I would like to add in as a little in-between of this theory. Back when Chapter 2 first came out, I used to think that if Berdly fully committed to making that Neo-Dark Fountain, he would have melted, and the only reason why he didn't was because Ralsei stopped him. I used to use this as evidence for Chrysonite because they were the only human, and thus the only one who could make dark fountains, because dark fountains needed determination. And I used to think that Queen saying that all Lightners were capable of creating dark fountains was a lie, and that she was just misinformed because earlier she said that she was making assumptions about the Roaring Knight's actions and did not know about the roaring. So I thought that she could have also been making assumptions that all Lightners were capable of making fountains. And back then, she just assumed the Knight, just like she assumed the Knight's motive. But now that we have Chapter 4 and see Susie creating a dark fountain, I can 100% say that my old theory that I stopped believing in a long, long time ago is now dead in the dark, dark waters. And I could not care less about it. Alright, that's the original reason. Okay. Deltarune malware theory. This is my third major Deltarune theory. So I was watching WizTales Chris hates the soul and why they refuse to destroy it theory. Or analysis, maybe. It could be a theory, it could be an analysis. Either or, maybe both. And when I got to the end, and he talks about the vessel, I realized something. Why does Gaster ask us to acknowledge the possibility of pain and seizure? I don't know much about this topic, but I don't think anything in Deltarune would give people a seizure. Maybe the dark fountains with how they change color and display an odd crystalline-looking pattern as image_depths. I don't know. Is that actually called image_depths, or am I just being wrong? I think it's called image_depths, which is used in the Goner Maker and the Dark Fountains, and the mist at the end of Chapter 3 when chasing the knight outside of Chris's house, but let's get back on topic. But looking at it, I don't think it would be bad enough to cause some players to feel pain. WizTail says that the pain and seizures question is directed towards the player and not about the vessel. Which makes sense as a warning. I also remember how the original survey program was seen as a virus and gave players warnings. Now, what I am proposing, like many of my other theories, is probably wrong. And I think Toby would not do this, but as a wannabe game developer, I have came up with many ideas for games. And one of those ideas is a game that punishes the player through any means possible. And those means are by flashing bright lights and playing extremely loud noises to hurt the player. Games normally can't hurt the player, but they can affect two of their senses, that being their sense of sight and their sense of hearing. Just so people don't think I am evil, just so people don't think I am more evil than I actually am, if I was given the ability to make the games I wanted, I probably would not make this game as my first idea, or just, make this game at all. And if I did, it would be clearly designed and advertised for masochists, and people who aren't extremely sensitive to loud sounds and quick flashing lights. And be full of warnings. Because from what I know of some gamers that are really dedicated to gaming, like skilled rhythm game players and some challenge runners, they go to crazy lengths to accomplish their goals, even if it means harming themselves physically with the way they press buttons so fast, or the way they do press buttons and grip their controllers. So if some are willing to do that, I think masochists would be willing to play a game that blows their eardrums out and gives them headaches and seizures just to say that they did it. I don't think Toby has any malicious intent with Deltarune, and I just wanted to get my idea out there, like all my other theories. So I have I have faith that Toby wouldn't do something like this, and wouldn't do it so extreme, but I remember back in the day, I was watching YouTube videos and saw Kirby Superstar Ultra True Arena and Mark Soul's Scream, and how that traumatized me. So, yeah, if you're wondering where I came up with that idea, the idea to hurt players who play your games, that's where I came up with that idea. If Nintendo can get away with it, then anyone can. Again, I don't think Toby has any malicious intent, or wants to drastically harm us. Okay, wait, no, never mind. An idea I had for Deltarune is that if we do get control of our vessel in the future, then maybe when we take damage as it, then the screen flickers and a loud noise is played to try and get the player to feel the pain that the vessel is going through. Because if the vessel has no consciousness, then there is no one to feel its pain. Because when we control Chris and we take damage and they take damage, they obviously feel the pain. But as the vessel, that pain can't be felt because it has no consciousness and can't feel anything. Because as a player controlling the soul, we have no way of feeling the pain that these characters go through, so maybe as a way to further link us to the vessel, if we do end up controlling it, then the screen will flash accompanied by a loud sound, so that way the pain that the vessel would go through is then transferred over to us in some way. This could be because of Gaster, or it could be because of the vessel itself. Again, I don't think Toby has any malicious intent or wants to drastically harm us. This idea/theory is very unlikely to happen, and I just wanted to share my ideas and think that it might be cool if Toby tries to immerse us into Deltarune using the vessel. I think back to how Toby used boring gameplay of grinding in the genocide route and hard boss fights against Undyne, the Undying, and Sans to discourage or encourage if you really wanted to fight Undyne or Sans in the genocide route. Because of this, it's possible that using whatever small amount of pain a game can inflict on a player, that could be used to discourage them from doing something, like maybe progressing in the weird route, or maybe an option, or maybe like an optional test, or maybe an optional test like a secret boss. Alright. The original reset theory. This is a more fully fleshed out of that one mini theory that I talked about earlier. A more fleshed out theory that I made of that mini theory I talked about earlier. Okay, a response to the scene that changed Sans, an Undertale video essay by Artsy So I was watching the scene that changed Sans, an Undertale video essay created by Artsy because I had recently done the Sans dinner scene for my playthrough, and because they had recently uploaded how Deltarune kinda relates back to Undertale, so I went back to watch the first video I've seen of them, and upon watching that video, I realized something. Artsy claims that the dinner scene is what gets Sans to catch on to Frisk's ability to save and load. Artsy claims that the way Frisk reacts to Sans saying, "You haven't died a single time," by giving an odd look, and Sans responding to that by saying, "Hey, what's that look supposed to mean? Am I wrong?" is Sans catching on to Frisk's ability to save and load, or that they are at least an anomaly and can cheat death, because I don't think Sans specifically knows what saving and loading is, just that there is an anomaly that can control time somehow. Okay, let me grab some more water. Ignoring the fact that Frisk is much more emotive than they look, which has its own implications on Deltarune and how Chris relates back to the player, and how Chris has way more control than we think they do. what catches my attention is the way Sans said it. Saying to someone that they have not died a single time is very strange, because single time implies that someone can die multiple times, which is not a normal thing to say to someone. This makes it a great thing to say to This makes it a great thing to say to the anomaly, like Frisk, who can die multiple times because they can save and load, and understand the concept of dying more than once. But if Sans said it to someone else, wouldn't they also give a strange look? Because dying multiple times is not a normal thing a person and or monster can do. So how would Sans be able to determine whether or not they were they were the anomaly based off of their looks? Because both the anomaly and non-anomalies would look at Sans strangely. Keyword is normal. Frisk / Flowey and technically the Amalgamates are not normal. Even then, the Amalgamates and Flowey are a secret. Even Undying the Undying happens on the Genocide route, where the scene can't happen. And considering how quickly her transformation happened, and how she was still able to talk after being cut open, and having her HP depleted to 0, some like myself could be convinced that she did not actually die before becoming Undying, and only died once. Though it does go against the name. I can kind of see why Frisk gives an odd look. I can kind of see why Frisk gives an odd. Okay, let me go back from the start. I can kind of see why Frisk's odd look can clue Sans into learning that Frisk is an anomaly when they have died, because their expression could be one of shock or fear, wondering how Sans knows they can die multiple times, or Frisk just looking generally displeased because they know they have died before. Which would not be the typical puzzled / confused response or expression Sans expects a normal person would give in response to his odd statement of them not dying a single time. I am unsure if Frisk's expression when they have actually reached the dinner scene deathless clues Sans onto them being the anomaly, because if they didn't, then that would imply that Frisk does not know they can use saving and loading to cheat death. Or if they have created a save file but have not died a single Okay, let me go back and reread this. I am unsure if Frisk's expression when they have actually reached the dinner scene deathless clues Sans onto them being the anomaly, because if it didn't, then that would imply that Frisk does not know they can use the saving and loading ability to cheat death. Or if they have created a save file but just have not died. Or that Frisk is completely unaware of saving and loading if you don't create a save file. But I think that having a weird expression is a normal response to that statement anyways. I would talk more about this, but I've kind of given up on this theory because of these dialogue differences. So, I don't think that Sans catches on to Frisk if they're the anomaly. If they haven't died a single time. Sans would only be able to figure out that you're the anomaly if you have died more than once. Or, well, have died at all. Well, that's about it for my Deltarune and Undertale theories. This podcast-like video has been going on for quite a while. I'll see you guys next time where I actually have the gold to buy stuff in MTT Resort. Goodbye.